Happy New Year. Did you make any resolutions? I was asking the audience, or did you give that up?
I forgot.
Did you ever used to make resolutions?
Yeah?
Yeah. Like what?
Smoking cigarettes.
You quit that? Yeah.
And, talking faster.
Welcome to Three Films and a Podcast, the show where destiny brought together three friends to enhance each other's cinematic journey by watching three new movies in a series of themed rounds. There is no claim of ownership on any film footage used in this episode, as all film footage is owned in its entirety by the copyright holders. And just like every car in Too Fast, Too Furious, this podcast contains spoilers. Enjoy! Hello and welcome back to another episode of Season 2 of Three Films and a Podcast. My name is Ben Lawhorn. I'm coming to you from Salt Lake City, Utah. With me as always is Tyler Beck, who is in America somewhere, I think.
Correct. Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Currently Fort Myers, Florida, in a trailer park in Fort Myers, Florida. That's not a joke.
Nice. I love it. It's awesome.
Yeah.
It's like witness protection. I don't know where he is.
It kind of feels that way. The neighbors look at me as if it were the case. Like, who's this strange man in his
I think
van?
anyone that's listened to like the last 6 weeks of our episodes, it's like, I'm in California now. Now I'm in, like, he's just like going all over, like a new location every week.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, Matt Weiler could not be here tonight. It's the opposite of a Christmas miracle that we found out today that he wouldn't be able to join us.
It's why I'm in witness protection.
Company. Yeah, that's why.
Oh.
Yeah.
I had to take care of him. They put me in witness protection.
That's why you're in a trailer park in Fort Myers.
I'm on the lam.
Yes, exactly. For those of you new to the show, welcome to the Movie Club. And for those of you who are returning, welcome back to the Movie Club. Our goal as a podcast is to like kind of create an active movie club online. You can find all of our stuff on social media at 3filmspod. You can also go to our website, 3filmspod.com. We have like merch, we have Patreon, we have, I'm sure you've probably been seeing all of our posts, but we're doing a discount this month on everything we've got on there. So you can support us on there. It'd be much appreciated.
It is.
What?
Get yourself
there
a
it is.
mug.
Look at that. Look at that merch. This is what I get for not looking at the chat as we're chatting. It's like, wait, what did I do? Did I do something wrong? Yeah, with the movie club theme in mind, we want to welcome our guest tonight, the host of Reel Ramblin. Chris, welcome. So glad to have you here. Welcome to the movie club. I'm very excited that we're going to be talking about, I believe, one of your favorite movies tonight.
That's right. Yeah. And first of all, I just want to thank you guys for having me on. It's really is an honor to be here. I love what you all do here. And yeah, I mean, you guys, every time I watch and listen to you, it just sounds like you're having a blast. Your format is so fun. So it's really fun to be here.
Cool. Yeah, I appreciate that. I'm very excited to have you here. I was listening to your top 5 list. I guess a little sneak peek down the road. You're going to be coming back for another one of your favorites that is decidedly not one of my favorites, which is Interstellar. So I'm very excited for that conversation. I think that's going to be a lot of fun.
Nice.
But I'm really excited to talk about this one today. We are going into our last Christmas movie episode. This was my selection, and I went with It's a Wonderful Life because this felt like, I talk about holes in my movie watching experience, and things that are stuck out like, oh, I need to see that. How I've not like watched all of whatever, Gone with the Wind or any Grease, whatever. This felt like the Christmas version of that. Like, I'm like, I have not seen like It's a Wonderful Life. And it just seems to pop up on every single list ever when you talk about Christmas movies. And I was just kind of like, all right, I feel like I need to do it. This is the perfect time to do it. That's what this podcast has really turned into for a lot of us. It's just like, I need to watch this. If I make myself watch it, then, I'll finally get around to it. And I'm glad we did. Like I had a really good time with this movie. I'm excited for us to talk about it. But before we jump into it, Chris, do you want to give like a brief explanation or synopsis of what the movie's about, and then kind of tell us, your personal experience with the movie and what you thought on this rewatch?
For sure. Yeah. So basically we've got small towner George Bailey, main character. He's set on going to college and seeing the world. And through a series of events and choices, his life basically drastically departs from the dreams he once had. And one fateful evening, at his most desperate hour, George is visited by an angel sent to help show him what life would have been like if he never existed. Pretty crazy. Pretty heavy stuff. Doc, this is heavy, as Marty would say.
There's that word again, heavy. Why are things so heavy in the future? Is there a problem with the Earth's gravitational pull? What?
But honestly, my own personal experience with this movie, I've always loved it. And I know just with that first statement, that's probably wildly different than a lot of the audience who watched this movie. It's a classic, it's black and white, and not everyone's drawn to that. But I was, even at an early age. And that's probably associated with the memories I have of watching a lot of black and white stuff with my parents, whether that be movies, TV shows, like History Channel documentaries, Andy Griffith, Twilight Zone, whatever. So the black and white aspect of it was never a turnoff for me. Nice. And then it's just a really good, solid movie with a great message. So, I mean, how do you turn that down if you're someone that's open to learning something good? I mean, I think overall this movie does hold up. If you're open to being patient with the message that it presents, you do have to wait a long time to get that message because it's near the end, and we'll talk about that. But I think it's worth it every time.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned like being drawn to the black and white of it because on Amazon they give you an option to watch a colorized version of it. And I started watching that. I got like 2 minutes in and I was like, no, this needs to be watched like the way it was originally presented. Right. And I think let me just say I'm guilty of doing this. I'll see something, I'll know it's a classic, something like A Wonderful Life. I've heard about it forever. I know it's in black and white and I know it's going to be good, but I don't necessarily know what good means. Does that mean it was good then and you have to respect it for that? Or is it good by today's standards? And so that was my hang up with it. I mean, to say that this movie's always been on my radar, like couldn't possibly be more of an understatement. I feel like you come out of the womb and you know about like baseball, apple pie, Elvis. It's a wonder, there's a handful of things that are just in your life. Like whether it's like, the quotes that you hear in people, people saying around town or whatever, like in conversation or references or movie or whatever. This thing is just like woven into the fabric of American pop culture. And so you just like, for me, I just like, it's just always been a part of my life. And I've always felt like I've seen it, but I just never have gotten around to watch it. Cause I thought like, oh, it's going to be old and slow and boring. And like, I've seen A Christmas Carol. I get it. You know what I mean? Like it's fine, but I couldn't possibly have been more wrong about this movie. I had an absolute blast from the jump. Like I was just in, I don't know what it was. And we're going to talk about this a little bit more later, but like for whatever reason, before I started the movie, I saw the 2-hour runtime and I was like, all right, like gonna watch this old 2-hour movie. And continuing the theme of this podcast, every time I have this hang up and every time we force ourselves to watch something, I end up just loving it. I had the same reaction to even like something like Vertigo. You know what I mean? I didn't know we were getting ourselves into with that Hitchcock round or, on and on and on different movies we watched. But I don't know. I just loved it. I didn't feel the 2-hour runtime. I didn't feel like I needed to be patient with it. I don't know. I couldn't have had more fun with this movie. And I hope more people who are like me and haven't seen it give it a chance because it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I think I went into it. I think that was like my idea behind picking it was what you just said, where it's like, we know it's good, but like, was it good then? Or is it still good now? And I think that's one of the best things you can say about a movie is like, it still holds up. Like it's still really good. I was in really early as well. I feel like I'm a sucker for Jimmy Stewart. I'm just like, cool, whatever he's doing. Like, this is going to be a good time. So let's do this. But I loved the story. I mean, Frank Capra is just done like some of the greatest movies ever. And I think he even said this was like the best thing he did, something like that. Like, I don't know. And I had a lot of fun with it. It was not what I was anticipating. Same. I think I had, I was with you. Like, I know you just joked about it, but I was like, I've seen A Christmas Carol. I know this story. This is fine. Because it sounds like similar.
Yeah.
You know, it's like they're parallels, kind of. You know,
It's
And
mirror
I read-
opposite.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I just like I read the tagline. You know, it's like an angel comes. You know, and honestly, like for the first hour, it's like, man, they're doing a lot of setup here. Like we still got a lot of story to go. You know, for the angel to show up, because I'm expecting Bob Cratchit, you know, Ebenezer Scrooge. It's like, cool, 15 minutes in, we're heading to the past, you know. And that's what I was expecting with this. Like, oh, we'll get a little idea of who he is, and then like we'll spend an hour plus just like experiencing all the stuff. And then like I paused it when we finally met the angels, like an hour and 40 minutes in. There's like half an hour left of the movie.
It's the end of the movie, yeah.
Yeah, it's like the absolute end, but it works, you know, like it, because we've spent so much time with him and getting to know his character and who he is and who his family is, like all this kind of stuff. It really makes it pay off later on. And it also makes like the very end pay off, because if you don't know what kind of person, George Bailey, is that right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
George.
If you don't know what kind of person he is, then it's like the ending maybe wouldn't work as well if we hadn't spent so much time building it up. So it was a lot of like pretext and build up, but very necessary. And I just wasn't anticipating that version of this like storytelling, not trope, but device.
Yeah.
But I loved it. I'm really glad that we watched it.
For sure.
I often refer to it as like a boxing match. Like if you could survive through to the end of round 3, there's that knockout punch at the end, and it's just, you know, it's worth it.
That's solid. I honestly was like watching this after work, just kind of, you know, letting traffic go. I'm like, I'm just going to hang out here for a little bit. I was just like tearing up at my desk at the ending. You know, it's like, I'm just in an office right now, just like watching this, but like it's still hitting me. Like this movie works. Like, you know, no matter how you're watching it, where you're watching it, like it definitely works. I
read a review on Letterboxd. Someone wrote, "This is the kind of movie that you want to call your mom right when you're finished watching it." And I was like, I just felt warm and happy, and I just I loved it, man. It
was so good. So now let's get into you know, the movie. It kind of, I guess the whole thing, I thought it was also a Christmas movie in the sense of A Christmas Carol. I was also like kind of thinking that's what was happening, because, you know, you're right. You talk about some of the stuff that like gets referenced in pop culture, but it's all kind of in that last 40 minutes, like everything we see, you know, like Merry Christmas, like running around and just like all this kind of stuff. It's like, that's all in that time. So I just thought this was like a winter movie. But at the same time, this is still very much a Christmas movie. And I kind of wanted to talk about that. Like what the recipe for a Christmas movie, like what does It's a Wonderful Life have that, you know, lends itself to that category, and what makes it still like a must watch after all these years? I mean, this movie was made in 1946 and it's 75 years old. Is that my math right? And it's still like amazing. It's still so good.
Sure.
So anyways, I just want to talk about what about this movie and the Christmas of it all makes it work. Chris, I'm going to throw it to you.
Yeah, well, it's kind of funny, interesting, like you were saying. I mean, this movie is definitely marketed as a Christmas movie. It always has been. But when you really watch it a few times and break it down, I would argue it doesn't have many more Christmassy elements to it than like Die Hard or something.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Not much of it is in Christmas time, really. I was surprised by that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, the ending scene is there's a Christmas tree there. You know, the girls playing the hymn on the piano and all that. But really, yeah, I think though what brings people back to this movie every holiday season is that it's relatable. Number one, I mean, each one of us, I think, has a bit of George Bailey in us and what he goes through. And then the holiday season for a lot of people can actually just be a stressful time. I mean, there's joy in it too, but it's also, you know, every December people are thinking about finances and getting gifts for people and all that. And I think just having some of that baggage and joyous experiences too, watching this movie and watching George Bailey kind of play through all of this, it brings the audience through all those emotions. A big part of that too is just Jimmy Stewart and his acting chops. I mean, the power and the passion that he brings to the role and the character just helps the audience feel what he feels. So that's why I think this movie just hits big every single year. You don't just watch it once and then say, okay, I've watched It's a Wonderful Life. now I'm going to move on with my Christmas time or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cross that off. I'll never revisit it ever.
Ever.
I hate how good I feel right now. I'm never going to want this again. Yeah, no, I think your point's right. And we'll get into that in a little bit, some more, because I just want to talk about Jimmy Stewart, but I think he's a big draw for this. We talked about kind of what makes a Christmas movie. And I feel like so much of it is the community. And that's like literally what this movie is just built around is this man's influence on the community and how he's like putting others over himself. And just, I don't know. I love like the role they put him in is like the banker, basically, like in such a position to like help others. And we get Mr. Potter, is kind of the antagonist here, just getting wheeled around. Like, I don't know. He reminded me of Lebowski, Mr. Lebowski. Like he was just like having Brant push him around, like push me up to that table. I want to grab this,
or like a real live Jabba the Hutt or something like that.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
Well, it's funny you say that. And I mean, I don't mean to cut you off here, but like,
no, you're good.
As I was watching this movie, I had the same thought, the parallel to the Big Lebowski, the character. And there's other parts of this movie that relate to the Big Lebowski as well, thematically. But it's just like, when I was watching this movie, I was like, this movie is the recipe. You know what I mean? Like, and not even just for a Christmas movie. Like there's this movie, there's enough whimsy and like magic to it to make it seem like a heightened world or, a different universe or whatever. And there's just enough warmth to make you feel like safe and loved,
Yeah.
And there's just the right amount of darkness to make it like gritty and real and believable or whatever, to ground it somewhat.
For sure.
So I don't know. And I might be overthinking it, but as I was watching this, I just was like, oh, that's where they got, obviously like Christmas Vacation, they just did like the Bizarro World version of It's a Wonderful Life. But I was like, oh, that's where Jeff Winger came from, or, oh, that's where the Big Lebowski came from, or, on and on and on.
Yes.
So I don't know. I just felt like, I don't know what the recipe is, but this is the template. Like if I can see, like, if we're going to make a movie, we want it to be like It's a Wonderful Life, not like every movie, but like if you want to make a feel good family movie, just like try to do what A Wonderful Life did. You know what I mean? And it's obviously pushed over the brink by that treasure of a man, Jim Stewart.
It's funny though that you mentioned, it being feel good. You use the term feel good, and my wife refuses to watch this movie, by the way, because the first 2/3 of exposition is like pretty raw and real, and it gets to be so bad and somewhat depressing that my wife's like, "What? Why are you watching this? Like, this doesn't make me feel good." You stick around to the end, right? Because it does make you feel good, and it's Christmassy too, because Christmas is about, of course, giving and the size of your heart. Right. I mean, Grinch brought us that concept as well. And when you look at the two contrasting key players, like you were saying earlier, Ben, like you've got Mr. Potter, he basically has no heart. And then George Bailey has a heart so big that it quite literally ends up saving his life in the end through all the people that he's impacted. So, I mean, if that's not Christmas, I don't know what is.
I find it interesting because I find it interesting that your wife finds this to be so depressing. And like, to be clear, I understand why. Like, there's, they're talking about Depression era America in a small town with no assets or means of production or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, I understand like that part of it, but maybe it's just George's character, and since he is the vehicle with which we're traveling through this story, and he's such a happy-go-lucky, like, nothing gets him down until it does. But maybe it's just because he's our proxy and it makes me feel happy to hang out with him. But the whole time I felt good in this movie. Maybe it's because I knew it was going to end up well in some way, and I already knew sort of the message of the movie going into it. Maybe that helps a little bit.
Right.
But to me, I was just like, oh, everything's going to be fine. Nothing bad happens in this town. Are you kidding? Like, look at this place.
I think there were points for me where George Bailey was frustratingly nice, or like non-confrontational. Like, what's his Mary, and she's basically like throwing herself at him, like doing everything. He's like, oh, that's Sam's girl. It's like, dude, like, don't do this. Like,
Come on.
she wants to be with you, man. Like he's like, oh, I can't do that. That's Sam's girl. Like, stop, man. Like, you're being too nice right now. But at the same time, that's all.
Telephone scene though, that changed a lot.
Oh,
right?
Man.
Now you listen to me. I don't want any plastics. I don't want any ground floors. And I don't want to get married ever to anyone. You understand that? I want to do what I want to do. And you're...
George.
Honestly, that really did. I was going to comment on that. Like, I think let's just like jump into Jimmy Stewart here. But those are two moments, like that telephone scene. And then when he gets home after like losing the $8,000, he switches on a fucking dime. And it's so good. It's so powerful. That's why, like, oh yeah, we're dealing with like Jimmy Stewart here. Like we watched, we watched Vertigo.
Vertigo,
right?
yeah.
He was so good on that. I went on one of the other pods who've guested here. I'll let the movie speak. We talked about Rope. He's really good in that as well. He's just a fantastic actor, and I think he's a huge reason this movie is what it is and why it's so successful and relatable, because I know, people listen to your Clubhouse and see that, but like I was gonna say, he is kind of the Tom Hanks of back then. Like he was the kind of every man, the America's dad kind of thing. Like everyone's like, oh yeah, that guy's cool. I want to be with that guy. So yeah, I don't know. He talked about this being his favorite role that he ever did. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about Jimmy Stewart, I guess. Chris, like, what are your thoughts on the man?
Yeah, I mean, so much talent, and it's poured into his movies. So he is an icon, and I think he deserves that title. It doesn't surprise me. You said it's Stewart's favorite performance that he did, and that doesn't surprise me one bit. I mean, he poured his passion into this, and it's very noticeable watching it. Like you said, that scene where he comes home after the $8,000 blunder, and by Uncle Billy. What's with Uncle Billy, by the way? Anyway, come on, man.
Hold on.
You mishandled $8,000 so that you can roast a 90-year-old in a wheelchair. Like, come on.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a pretty good roast. Also, do we ever, is his bird ever addressed? Like, is there a moment we're introduced to it? Like, it's okay if there isn't, but I just want to make sure I didn't miss it. Like, I love
his
that
best friends in the world.
Bird.
He's got a crow and he has a squirrel later that hangs out on his arm. Like, what?
Yeah, that's right.
Why?
Honestly, the crow, like with the whole symbolism thing, like, oh, this is when like the ghost of Christmas past comes because he's gonna die. It's like we're getting really heavy with the metaphors here. It's like, no, it's just
just a crow.
His bird. He just takes it to work. Like, oh,
I dig that. Okay,
all right, cool.
I thought maybe I like missed the introduction of the crow, or like, oh, that's old Billy's crow or whatever. But I don't think we get that, and I like that. I was like, I kept having to be like, wait. What did they like not could they not do another take? Did a bird fly on the set? Like, what's happening here?
We got to keep it.
I know film's expensive, but anyways. Sorry, I didn't mean to derail it so much, but you just reminded me.
Hey, I think I'm the one that started the rambling. Sorry, have it. Uncle Billy's memorable, but I think George Bailey is the one we remember most at the end of the day, and that comes down to Jimmy Stewart's performance, like we've been talking about. So. It's a Wonderful Life, fantastic, probably his best, but admittedly the only other performance I've seen him in is with Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. Okay. And that was one that I remember just watching, inevitably as part of my U.S. history class when we studied government back in 8th grade. That was a while ago. And I remember actually being engaged, though, especially during that last sequence when he does the filibuster and he's been talking and talking, and he's drinking the water and he just keeps going to make his important point. And I mean, I remember sitting up in my seat and being engaged, and that doesn't happen very often with 8th grade boys, in class.
It does not.
Yeah, exactly.
It does not.
If you can get me interested in something as dry as a filibuster, as an adolescent, you've got legendary acting status in my book. So
yeah,
without a doubt.
Good on you, Jimmy Stewart.
I couldn't agree more. I would highly recommend. So I'm a lot like you. The only thing I've seen of Jimmy Stewart is, that I know of, that I consciously watched knowing it was Jimmy Stewart. Maybe when I was younger, I saw something, but is this movie and Vertigo. And you've got to go back and watch Vertigo. Cause the guy, like, we hear about the it factor, right? And it's a hard thing to quantify, but Jimmy Stewart just has it. You know, Chris, you talked about relatability earlier, and like I just couldn't possibly agree more. And it got like even with Tom Hanks has the same, you know, the same characteristics. They're just like the perfect everyman. They're just handsome enough and strapping enough to be like the hero that you trust and to be like, I could be that guy. Like when I look at like Chris Evans or my guy Chris Hemsworth, I'm like, I'm never going to look like those guys, but I could look like Jimmy Stewart. I could look like Tom Hanks. You know what I mean? Like I can relate to that. I could be George Bailey. Right. And like, he just has that sort of like that aw shucks charm that you just kind of fall in love with the guy. Like he's just goofy, but he's not too goofy. I don't know. It's like this weird middle ground. It's very unique and specific to him. And I just feel like there's something about Jimmy that everyone can attach to, whether it's something about him as a person or his character, or just like maybe you relate to something directly, or you just like something about the character, right? Like he just has a way of just being likable, and that's a hard thing to quantify, but it's just the truth, and it's especially true with George Bailey.
100%. Yeah, he definitely has all those qualities. I think of the movies I've seen him in, the first one that I got exposed to by my grandma was Harvey, where he's a middle-aged man who's friends with an imaginary 6-foot rabbit. So actually, like, that's actually his favorite movie he's ever been in. And now we're talking about like his favorite role that he's ever done. So Harvey's kind of cool. It's a weird one to, you know, wrap your head around, especially as a kid. But yeah, Jimmy Stewart, he's just got that thing, you know, like his, you know, with his voice and all that, like it's kind of the aw shucks, whatever. But at the same time, like in Vertigo or in Rope, you know, and he's like working on solving the crime stuff, like you believe him. He's not just like some guy, you know, so to speak. Yeah. Like, yeah, I trust this guy. I think he's great, but he's also, he's not The Rock. He's not like something like that, where it's like, oh, this is like an unattainable thing. Like, no, this is just like my next door neighbor. It's George Bailey. So,
yeah, it's good old George.
So true.
George.
Good old George. So I want to talk now about I don't know if you get this on your pod, Chris, but we get this sometimes where people ask us what movie that we're going to be watching, and I feel like I've got a sentence or two to kind of pitch to them why we're watching it or what the movie's about, especially if people haven't heard of it. So obviously, like Tyler mentioned, I think It's a Wonderful Life is on all of our birth certificates. You know, it's like, it's just part of who we are as we're born. Like we all know about it. But on the off chance that someone hasn't seen it, like myself until recently, because I thought it was a Christmas Carol knockoff, you know, I'm curious, what scenes would you show somebody, or what moment would you show somebody as your elevator pitch for It's a Wonderful Life?
Yeah, well, this one was tough because, like, of course, there are moments that are just fun. But if you want someone to kind of understand the gist of what's happening and they haven't read like the IMDb synopsis, I would say you have to go with the conversation between George and the Angel Clarence in that bridge guardhouse.
What's with you? What'd you say just a minute ago? Why'd you want to save me?
That's what I was sent down for. I'm your guardian angel.
I wouldn't be a bit surprised.
Ridiculous of you to think of killing yourself for money. $8,000.
Yeah, now just things like that. Now, how do you know that?
I told you I'm your guardian angel. I know everything about you.
Well, you look about like the kind of an angel I'd get. Sort of a fallen angel, aren't you? What happened to your wings?
Yeah.
So it's shortly after, you know, George is actually on the bridge, and then he jumps in to save Clarence. And then they come back into that guardhouse, and I feel like just that conversation holds the most connective tissue between all of the long exposition you just had that we've been talking about that lasts a long time. Yeah. And then like the rest of the story, that last dream sequence and everything. So I would choose that scene.
Yeah.
I think that's solid. I love the other dude that was in the shack with them. And just his facial reactions, you know, it's like, how old are you? 209. He's like, well, like just really like playing it up since like 40s, you know, cinema. So it's just like really like, oh my gosh, you know, but the chair falling backwards, like, oh, this is great, like physical comedy. I'm really enjoying what this guy is doing right now. Yeah. I really like that scene a lot.
Well, and like the scene that follows that, like from the minute that George jumps in to save Clarence, right? Clarence is his name. Till, I mean, throughout the whole rest of the movie is like some of the most fun you have in the movie when he's going through like the bizarro world of, I think it's called Pottersville or whatever in the dream sequence or whatever. But yeah, I thought that part was a lot of fun, and I've got to be honest, I was like, I don't know, Pottersville looks way more fun than like that's a town I would rather visit. But I mean, I guess
all the ice cream shops have been replaced with like whorehouses.
Yeah, exactly. Whenever, so like, you know, listeners know, Chris, you probably know this. I'm traveling across the country, and every place we stay, the first thing I look at is like, what bars, what restaurants, what fun stuff is around me. So I think I would have had a good time in Pottersville. But
oh, for sure.
I try to not pick anything too spoilery for my elevator pitch. Although I do agree that I think that's probably the scene and the sequence of events that would be most interesting. Like people might be like, oh shit, how does it come to this point? Right. But for me, I had a few scenes I was going back and forth between, and I think I'm actually going to land on, oh gosh, I feel like this is as difficult to pick as like when we do our movie drafts or something, like a scene draft. But I really like a lot of the confrontations he has with Potter. I mentioned Jeff Winger earlier in Community. I'm binging Community right now. And you know, one of his tropes is he gets up and makes the speech that saves the day. And George has a really cool one right after his dad dies, and he takes over the building and loan. And he's about to leave. He's literally going to go catch his train. And then he has this like heartwarming, empowering speech and overthrows the evil Potter and takes control of the building and loan. And I just think that's a really cool moment. It's gives you a feel of like George's character, and you buy in as the hero of the film in that moment. So I think that's what I would choose.
For sure. He definitely brings up like the emotion out of George, because like another one that you left that was on here is when he turns down the job, you know, to Potter, and just like that's another example of just how quickly, like I know he's acting and all that, but I just think he does such a good job that it's like so powerful, like how quickly like he's kind of thinking like, oh, $20,000, like holy cow, you know, and then you just like you see the light bulb go off and he's just like, no, you know, it's
which
like,
by the way,
I was like, yeah,
do you know how much did you do the inflation conversion?
No, what's that worth now?
So I was actually watching on Amazon Prime, which I think you were too, but I paused it at that moment for whatever reason. And there's little trivia on the side of the screen.
Oh yeah.
And so assuming that scene takes place in 1939, it's never stated, but you know, you can kind of, that would have been worth around $300,000 a year.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Dang.
And so
it's impressive.
So his $8,000 he's missing is like 140, 150 grand. Like, yeah, you'd probably be pretty bummed out.
For sure. Yeah, that'd be huge. Yeah, right now it's like $8,000. Like, oh, I mean, you scrap that together. It's fine. No big deal. Now it really puts that ending in context too, that the neighborhood's like, here's $100,000. You know?
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy, but I think those are great scenes. I liked the dynamic that he had with Potter. The scene that I went with, actually, before I get into that, just one quick note. You talked about Pottersville and the bar Nick's.
Yeah.
That bartender to me is like this is exactly where Cameron got the voice when he's like calling Principal Rooney, pretending to, you know, he's like, I want my daughter out front, you know, like all this stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm watching this, and like, oh, that's the drunk that poisoned the child. It's like, oh my God, that's where this voice is from. Like, it is spot on. It was so funny. It's like, oh man,
that's what I mean, man. This movie is the recipe, you know?
Hey, look, mister. We serve hard drinks in here for men who want to get drunk fast, and we don't need any characters around to give the joint atmosphere. Is that clear?
Pardon my French, but you're an asshole.
What?
Asshole!
You're absolutely right, sir. You've hit the nail right in the head.
Find out where she is.
This isn't over yet, Buster. Do you read me?
Loud and clear, Mr. Peterson.
Call me sir, God damn it.
Yes, sir, yes, sir.
That does it. Out you two pixies go, through the door or out the window.
It's one of like really 5 movies. You're like, you want to make a good movie, go watch one of these 5 and just like shuffle it around to make it your own.
Exactly. Yeah, we had moved on, so I didn't like want to interject with it, but Matt, has created the category that we sometimes go over called like what's in the soup.
Yeah.
And I kind of feel like this is just the broth of every movie's soup. You know what I mean? Like there's something from this movie that's like in every single Christmas movie out there.
He's not here.
It's just the standard.
So I feel bad renaming a segment so we can talk to him about it, but we should change it from what's in the soup to what's in the stew in honor of Jimmy Stewart.
Jimmy Stew.
Oh,
I like
perfect.
that. What's in the stew?
Yeah.
Matt, sorry you're hearing this now for the first time, but we have officially changed it. So
no, he'll be on board. Matt loves Jay Stew.
Yeah. In honor of Jay Stew. My scene, another crazy thing about this movie takes place from 1919 to 1945. I think Jimmy Stewart was like 38 when he did it, but he played everything from like a 20-year-old to a whatever, the math is. Like, man, he did a pretty good job because I believed him in the younger years. Like, he looks great. He's awesome.
Do you think part of that is because we're like, that's so far removed? The 20s, we're like, yeah, everyone looked like they were 40 in the 20s.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Right.
Like you're watching Grease 2 and all the high schoolers are 30 years old or whatever. But
yeah, it's just what they look like.
My scene was the high school dance and then those kids kind of pranking him and like having the pool, like the dance floor opens up in the middle and reveals a pool. So these two kids like do that, everyone else notices, but he's cutting a rug with Mary and just like really in the zone and doesn't realize what's happening. And then unfortunately he falls in. And I think that we learn just so much about who he is in this scene because his instinct is just like, keep dancing in the pool. Like, cool, we're going to have fun. Like, I'm not going to let those guys get to me. I think people look up to him enough to be like, oh, let's all get in the pool. Like, you could be embarrassed for somebody like, oh my God, they got him. Like whatever. Everyone's like, no, let's just all jump in. This is super fun. And that again, I think is reflected later on when like the community kind of rallies around him. Like, just like, cool. If he is doing this, like I'm on board, like, let's give it a shot. So, and I just like the idea of like a pool that has like a basketball court on top of it, just like slowly opening up. I think that's such a cool visual to see that. So
I was impressed with the technology.
That's what I would show people just to kind of see the more fun side, whatever, of this movie. But
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I love that.
And then the principal or whoever it is dives in at the end. I thought that was really fun.
Yeah. I don't remember what he says. It wasn't fuck it, but he was essentially just like, man, fuck it. Like, let's just go in. Like, we're just going head first, I
think it's like you said, like that showed the leadership power of George Bailey. Like everyone just wanted to do what he was doing. It's kind of like the more mature version of like, I don't know, Billy Madison's "Pee in Your Pants is Cool" scene. Where, like,
yes, exactly.
He gets all the kids to like it, right?
Honestly, I'm just so glad you gave me an opportunity to play that clip.
Yes.
I love that.
You're welcome.
Anytime I can play anything from Billy Madison, I love that so much.
Roll it.
Hey, look, everybody. Billy peed his pants.
Of course I peed my pants. Everybody my age pees their pants. It's the coolest.
Really?
Yes! You ain't cool unless you pee your pants.
Wow. Hey, man, Ernie pees pants, too. All right.
Roll it.
I just like to do that. Any excuse I get to make you do stuff, even though you already said you were going to do it. I don't know.
Roll footage.
If peeing your pants is cool, consider me Miles Davis.
Oh, that was the grossest thing I've ever heard in my life. Let's go.
Roll the clip. I think I want to get into a segment that we have introduced here in season 2, which we are calling our Adam Driver drive-in double feature. And in this scenario, I just like to imagine that we are kind of running a drive-in and we get to basically book the bill for a double feature with another movie and It's a Wonderful Life. And I'm always curious to hear what everybody would pick and what order they would put it in. So, Chris, I'm going to throw it to you. What would you pair with this and what order are you showing it in?
All right. So this might seem a bit weird at first, but hear me out. Okay. I'm going with Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer.
I love it.
Okay.
Like the old stop motion one?
Oh, yeah.
Like
the
original?
Okay,
original
cool.
TV special. Yeah.
Rad.
First of all, I love the animation, any stop motion, anything.
Yeah.
That's not why I would choose it for this double feature. I would choose it because, first of all, I would put it second after the It's a Wonderful Life main feature. Because by that point, I feel like if you've got any families with you, the little kiddos, they're going to need something that's a little more bright and, I don't know, active.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Be maybe falling asleep during the black and white one. If they're not like me, I was just a weird kid. But you go to Rudolph afterwards, and oddly enough, I find that it's kind of similar in some ways. Like Rudolph goes on a similar journey where he has a lot of this responsibility that's thrust on him like pretty early on in the movie, and we see that. Santa's trash talking him unless he gets out there and buffs up a little bit and hides his acne. It's terrible. He gets treated pretty rough, but he needs to find a way to kind of go through all of that and build up perseverance. And he ends up running away at some point because he can't handle all of that pressure. And then it's up to him to kind of find this support system and these friends that he comes across to kind of bring him back around and realize the value that he has to everyone around him. So oddly enough, I found a pretty big connection there. That's why I would choose that one.
It's perfect.
And I like the synergy of, It's a Wonderful Life starts out, like we talked about, as not a Christmas movie. And it sort of goes into the last half of it's all about Christmas, and it ends on Christmas. There's the Christmas trees, how do you say that? Auld Lang Syne, whatever. Auld Lang Syne. And then you just go straight into more Christmas all the way through Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. So it's a good bit of synergy there.
So good.
Yeah, and it's a way to just still kind of bring like kids to exposure of classic movies.
Yeah, for sure.
But still having more of a kid's feel.
Yeah.
I'm still picturing just like 13-year-old Chris, just like, I've got to learn more about the filibuster. Like, I need to know more right now. Like,
there's no time for Christmas.
Jimmy Stewart. I love it.
Hey, I ended up becoming a full-time social studies teacher. So that was probably a huge part of it.
Yeah, exactly. I love it. I think that's awesome.
Man, Jimmy Stew influencing lives around the world. I love it.
That's right.
So you mentioned you put Rudolph to keep the kids engaged, right? Well, I find myself usually picking something for when the kids go to sleep. The parents will have something to watch. And, we talked about how It's a Wonderful Life is sort of like, Christmas Vacation is the Bizarro World version of It's a Wonderful Life. So it's really hard for me not to pick that. I think by now we all know that's my favorite Christmas movie. I feel like Chevy Chase is in way more ways than one, like the other side of Jimmy Stewart's coin. Just
America's Dad.
A very hateable America's Dad. But for whatever reason, you still keep him around. We don't know why, but anyways, I'm not gonna do it. I just had to mention it. But I think I'm gonna pair it with Die Hard.
Welcome to the party, pal.
Because the kids are gonna go to sleep. We're gonna bring the action back up. You might have come to a lull. You're feeling warm. You're feeling comfortable. Now let's shake it up. Yippee-ki-yay, motherfuckers! Let's do this. And I like the parody because, you could argue that It's a Wonderful Life isn't even a Christmas movie, and I think we have somewhat tiptoed around that argument. I think we'll still let it be a Christmas movie. I think it has the warmth to it that we like around Christmas. And Die Hard is a contested Christmas movie itself, so I like that synergy there as well.
I think it's good. They're both half Christmas movies, so the two halves make a whole. So
there we go.
Good. Like that works. I had a really hard time with this because like we've talked about, like it's really just a Christmas movie in the last half hour, and I think a Christmas movie makes sense, but part of me was thinking more of like the idea of not like the world knowing no longer existing, like we spend with him. And my thought was kind of like, maybe it'd be fun to do like Back to the Future, something like that, where it's like, it's different in the sense that he's trying to like fix everything, in Back to the Future. Like he knows like the pieces that he needs to, fit together so everything works out.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I kind of like that idea of like seeing an alternate reality of what could be, like when he's like fading away in the photos and things like that. So it'd definitely be a switch up. I'd probably, I don't even know. I guess I played Back to the Future second. I really liked It's a Wonderful Life quite a bit. And I think I just want to like kind of ride that train. So kind of a weird pairing, but I was thinking about like Home Alone, like some of these like classics would be great to play back to back, but I just kind of wanted to pick on a theme that I thought was kind of interesting and see, and not do a Christmas Carol, because I thought this was just that, like let's switch it up a little bit. But
I like that because when we were talking about doing what our Rushmore was going to be for this episode, I kind of wanted to do the theme of characters seeing the alternate world, but I couldn't think of enough movies, and I couldn't think of the best term to Google to find a list.
Yeah.
So I didn't recommend it, but I do like that as an idea in movies where the character gets to see what could have been or should have been or would have been or whatever. I think that's cool.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I love that Back to the Future 2 choice. Because I was kind of joking about it earlier with the burlesque shows popping up everywhere in Pottersville, but every time I watch this movie, it reminds me of when Biff takes over in that alternate reality and everything is just kind of gone to trash.
Yeah, no, I'm glad I'm not as crazy as I felt in my head. I was like, man, this is like a really weird choice. I'm like, I don't know, I kind of like it. So
I'm feeling it.
I appreciate it. At least I have one ticket sold. I'm happy about that. One car in this drive-in. Cool. Well, I think it's time for us to close it out with our Rushmore Mountain.
These are OR scrubs.
Oh, are they?
This week, we are going to do movies with a narrator or, prominent voiceover in it. Last week we did our Christmas movie Rushmore, which we thought we'll do it again because this is like a great movie for that. But whoever came up with this idea, I think the narrator voiceover thing is a good call. A lot of great movies that do this. Chris, we'll throw it to you first. What 4 movies make it onto your Rushmore Mountain?
All right. So listen, with my first one, barring the controversy of this person, I don't think, aside from you, Ben, I don't think there's a smoother voice that I've ever heard on film or in anything. I've got to go with Royal Tenenbaum's Alec Baldwin. Yeah.
She was known for her extreme secrecy. For example, none of the Tenenbaums knew she was a smoker, which she had been since the age of 12. Nor were they aware of her first marriage and divorce to a recording artist in Jamaica.
Yeah.
For that performance alone, like personal whatever aside, like I think he's a great addition to that movie. I still think that's my favorite Wes Anderson, really up there with Life Aquatic, but I love Royal Tenenbaums. He's great in that.
Same. Yeah, it's my favorite as well, but I think what makes half of that, honestly, is the narration. So there's a lot of power behind that.
Yeah.
I would also put up there Shawshank Redemption because, again, Morgan Freeman, I know the whole movie's not narrated necessarily scene for scene, but you hear a lot of him talking about, Andy Dufresne and all that.
Right.
Yes.
Just so smooth, and it brings you through what is a very harsh story at times. So it kind of helps me feel like I can attach to it and mellow out.
For sure.
I feel like a scene like the record playing scene, the narration really adds to that. A lot of times it's a bummer to have everything explained outright, but the narration does a lot of cool stuff around that scene, kind of explaining it as it's happening and adding some a little bit of extra poetry to it. I think it works really well.
I tell you, those voices soared higher and farther than anybody in a great place dares to dream. It was like some beautiful bird flapped into our drab little cage and made those walls dissolve away. And for the briefest of moments, every last man at Shawshank felt free.
That one almost made my list, but I didn't put it on there. But it's
surprised.
Close.
I was surprised to see it wasn't on there too.
I was honestly surprised I didn't put it on there. But
I love that the record scene though. That's a perfect example of why it just works so well. Yeah. This may be a repeat, but I've got Stranger Than Fiction on my Rushmore for narration.
Harold's watch thrust him into the immitigable path of fate. Little did he know that this simple, seemingly innocuous act would result in his imminent death.
What? What? Hey! Hello? What? Why? Why my death? Hello?
And that was
so really good. Like when I saw that on there, it's like, oh, that's something that really plays into the movie so well. Like when he's on the street, yelling up, like what? All that. Like, oh, he's so good in that.
Yeah, I love the interactive element, like you were saying, and that's Emma Thompson, right? That does the narrating.
Yeah.
Both of the Emma Thompson and Will Ferrell to begin with, that combination was just fantastic. But
so good.
Yeah, the narration and it affecting what the character was going through, I thought that was a really fun idea. Maybe not the only time it's ever happened in cinema, but definitely one of the ones that stands out to me. And Emma Thompson is just fantastic. The last one I have there is Big Fish.
What they don't tell you is that once time starts again, it moves extra fast to catch up.
Nice.
Yeah, one of my favorite movies to begin with. A lot of fun, but you've got that nice southern kind of Louisiana accent with the guy that plays the older Edward Bloom. I can't remember the actor's name.
Yeah. I can't remember right now. I'm looking it up too.
My bad.
Yeah, I haven't seen that movie in a long time.
No, it's all good. Like I would say it's a bummer Matt's not here because I think he's the one of the three of us that's seen it. So I was like,
oh, okay.
Albert Finney. Yeah. Okay.
Albert Finney. Just a good, strong voice again. I think that holds a lot of weight.
So
neither of you have watched Big Fish?
It's been a long time. I have seen it, but it's been probably since it came out, to be honest. It's been a long time.
I have never seen it. I've thought multiple times about doing a Tim Burton round, and it would be probably between that and Ed Wood, because those feel like two that I really want to see that I haven't seen from him. But yeah, Big Fish would be a lot of fun.
I love it.
Yeah.
I like that it's like lighter Tim Burton. It's like the salad of the Tim Burton meal.
Yeah.
Yes. I like that. That's good.
Sorry, I relate everything to food. I'm just always hungry. So
yeah, you and me both, buddy. So when I put together a list like this, it's whatever comes to my mind first, whether it's my favorite or not. It just so happens that my favorite movie lands on here. I don't know how I could not put The Big Lebowski on here. I mean, the narrator, what's his name?
Sam Elliott?
Well, I know it's Sam Elliott, but it's just the narrator, right? It's the stranger.
I think he's.
They just call him the stranger. Right? I don't know, man. He's so fun. He's so cool. And I love that there's an interactive element to it as well. You know, they taught the scene at the bar about the sarsaparilla. It's one of my favorites.
Oh, do you have to swear so much? Like, I love this.
Yeah.
There's just one thing, dude.
What's that?
You have to use so many cuss words.
The fuck are you talking about?
It's incredible. The first movie, though, I actually didn't think of Lebowski first. I thought of Goodfellas first.
Okay.
Just that line that ever since I was a kid, I wanted to be a gangster. Like that's immediately popped in my head.
To me, being a gangster was better than being president of the United States.
And the narration in that is just, you know, it's instrumental to the movie. I almost just put Scorsese in general. You know, Casino has a lot of cool narration to it.
Wolf of Wall Street. Yeah. He's got
the Wolf of Wall Street. Yeah. Like, so you could just put a blanket answer of Scorsese, but I'll stick with Goodfellas. That's fine. Fight Club.
The people I meet on each flight, they're single serving friends. Between takeoff and landing, we have our time together, but that's all we get.
I like using Fight Club as a pick for this because it's very true to the book as well. Like the way they use the narrator and the I am Jack's whatever. That's a huge device in the book as well. And I feel like they did a really good job of adapting it for the movie. So it's worth a nod there. I have a feeling it might be a repeat pick, but that's okay. And then a movie that is coming up on your podcast feed soon on this very podcast. City of God has been one of my favorites for a long, long time.
Zé Pequeno sempre quis ser o dono da Cidade de Deus, desde os tempos de moleque, quando ele ainda se chamava Dadinho.
And it's got some really cool narration to it. That'll round out my list. I have some honorable mentions, but I'll save them.
Yeah, I mean, to get two repeats out of the way, I'm saying Lebowski. That was the first thing I thought of was Sam Elliott. I love his role in that. All the scenes with the narrator, like, I don't know, like in the supermarket at the very beginning, just kind of really setting the tone.
But sometimes there's a man, and I'm talking about the dude here. Sometimes there's a man, well, he's the man for his time and place. He fits right in there. And that's the dude.
Same with Fight Club. I think that's arguably one of the best, uses of a narrator. I think that also might be one of the best like book to movie adaptations. Like it's amazing how good they did with that. I think it's like an unfair thing to do. I hate when people say like, oh, the book's better. 'Cause I'm like, yeah, I know, obviously, but this feels like one of the few where it's like, well, they're at least on par with each other. Like they're really good.
Yeah, honestly, I would just watch the movie. The book's just as good as the movie, but just watch the movie. Save yourself some time.
I never know how to pronounce his name, but even the author said like, yeah, like the movie, they knocked it out of the park. So I think that's a good recommendation to get. We talked about Stranger Than Fiction, how the narration is kind of part of the movie, one of the characters in the movie. And that's my next two kind of fall into that with Usual Suspects. We have Kaiser Soze kind of like explaining all the stuff that they did. Again, talking about problematic white guys, Kevin Spacey. If we can set that aside, like it's a really good performance and a good movie. And I love the use of his voiceover and narration.
How many keys, you cocksucker?
In English, please.
Excuse me?
In English.
How many fucking keys, you cocksucker? What the fuck?
Number 4, step forward.
It was bullshit. The whole rap was a setup.
Hand me the keys, you fucking cocksucker.
It was all the cops' fault. You don't put guys like that into a room together. Who knows what can happen?
Hand me the keys, you fucking cocksucker.
And then Rosamund Pike in Gone Girl, like kind of reading like the diary entries. Like I that movie's so good. If you haven't seen it, definitely check it out. That's again another book adaptation.
Nick loved a girl I was pretending to be. Cool girl. Men always use that, don't they, as their defining compliment. She's a cool girl. Cool girl is hot. Cool girl is game. Cool girl is fun. Cool girl never gets angry at her man. She only smiles in a chagrin-loving manner and then presents her mouth for fucking.
I guess that's a lot of similarities here, huh? Like it makes sense that a lot of these book adaptations would have a narrator, but I think Gone Girl is so good. So that's what would make mine. I had Tenenbaums as an honorable mention, also Apocalypse Now.
Yeah.
That's a movie. That's something to like really like dig into. That's like a big thing, but like I that's a fantastic movie. The narration just like tops it off. So and I guess, kind of controversially, one of the cuts of Blade Runner has a narration in it. And I think, is it Ridley Scott, right? Yeah. I don't believe he likes, I think it was the thing a studio wanted them to do was to have Harrison Ford do the narration to explain everything. So I don't think it's what Ridley wants you to watch, but it's definitely out there. So
it does exist.
What honorable mentions did you have, Tyler?
So Chris, you mentioned you're a fan of stop motion claymation. Have you ever seen a movie called Mary and Max?
It was recommended to me recently, and I haven't watched it yet. But just looking at the trailer and the gist of it, it's definitely on my watch list. Yeah.
Yeah. So Ben, you mentioned you watched It's a Wonderful Life in your office after work, and you were crying in your office, and it was like an unnatural setting to do so. Well, so I learned about this movie through Adam Palcher's podcast, Deep Dive Film School, at the time called A Damn Film Podcast, or A Damn Movie Podcast.
A Damn Movie Podcast.
And so I knew they were going to be talking about this movie, and I wanted to listen to the episode. So I watched it. But the only time I had to watch it before the episode was before work at like 10 a.m. on like a Wednesday. And I'm sitting there by myself on my couch at whatever time in the morning before work, just bawling, just crying. It was so beautiful. It's such a cool story. It's a very weird premise. It's an old man with an old obese man with Asperger's in New York becomes pen pals with an 8-year-old girl in Australia. And it's all claymation, and it's just beautiful, man. I couldn't recommend it enough. And there's a lot of narration in it. And I also had a Stranger Than Fiction on my honorable mentions as well.
Nice.
Along with Tenenbaums, a lot of the ones you guys talked about. This one was sort of a hard list to fill up, and that's why I didn't put Shawshank on there. I was like, there's just too many movies, and there's ones that kind of have to bump it for me, like City of God or Lebowski. So
yeah, that makes sense. Well, Mary Max is streaming on the Criterion channel for anybody that has that. I definitely want to check that out now.
It's really good.
So yeah, that's our Rushmore. Chris, thanks so much for joining us for this episode. Like, I hope it was okay. We're super stoked to have you here. Like, I feel like nervous going into like a movie that like someone loves and like not knowing how I feel about it yet. And it's just like, I'm even more excited now for us to talk about Interstellar, because I'm just like, I need to be sold for an hour. So I'm excited for that episode. But
the fact that you guys hadn't
coming on,
like the fact that sorry to cut you off.
No, please keep going. Yeah.
But again, it just brings me so much more joy about It's a Wonderful Life. The fact that you guys hadn't watched it before and you love it so much now. I think, again, that just speaks to the impact of the film.
For sure. It's definitely entered the regular rotation, I think, for sure. For Christmas time, which is, I think it's kind of the highest recommend you can give a movie. And you're like, yeah, I'll add it to my rotation. And it's not just like a one-off thing.
Yeah. And thanks for having me on to talk about it. It is probably my favorite Christmas movie still nowadays. So it was a lot of fun talking about it with you guys. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. I think I realized I never asked for your plugs at the beginning of the episode. So those two right now, I apologize. Yeah, it's right. I just totally looked over it. But yeah, let people know about your podcast, where they can find you, all that kind of stuff.
Definitely. So it's the Reel Ramblin podcast, and starting out, I'm still pretty fresh, actually. You guys, you just celebrated your 1 year September?
Yeah, September. Yeah.
Okay. So I'll be celebrating mine next summer because I just started this last summer. But starting out, it was just kind of hey, I love having movie conversations, and now I want to kind of make that grow a little bit, bring more people into the fold, create a website, and I'm trying to start to look at YouTube presence and developing some merch and all that. So reelramblin.com is the website. So if you head there, you'll actually find everything. You'll find the podcast you listen to, some blog articles that I write that you can read, movie reviews, and then just getting to know me a little bit more. If you want to send like a direct message or question or something, reelramblin@gmail.com. And then I am on all the social media, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Reel Ramblin.
Nice. It's so satisfying. We can get the same username for every single platform.
Yes,
have all these different ones.
No confusion there.
Exactly. Yeah. So we'll make sure to get all those links in there. Really love your pod. I would love to come on sometime. I'm excited to have you come back on. This is gonna be fun. You can find us everywhere at 3 Films Pod on all the social. Same 3filmspod.com. You can find everything that we have, episodes, all that kind of good stuff is on our website. So Chris, thank you once again. Thank you everybody for listening and for your support. Thank you to our patrons. We really appreciate it. And yeah, have a good New Year's Eve, everybody, and Merry Christmas.
Bye, everyone.
That Veronica Vaughn is one piece of ace. I know from experience, dude. You know what I mean?
No, you don't.
Well, not me personally, but a guy I know. Him and her got it on. Woo-wee!
No, they didn't.
No, they didn't. But you can imagine what it'd be like if they did, right? Huh? Everybody on? Good. Great. Grand. Wonderful. No yelling on the bus!